it's Nina Marie Trapani for Simon Says Stamp, and today I'm going to be using some Art Impressions products to create this spooky cute card, which features a really unique embossing and die cutting effect. I'm going to be using the Spooky Crew stamps and coordinating dies from Art Impressions. These stamps are fantastic for coloring, and the stamp packaging is a great way to get some ideas for how to color these images. There are some darling critters, a haunted house, some great sentiments, and of course there are the coordinating dies to allow you to cut all of these pieces out. I'm going to be using the haunted house and also the kitty cat. I did think I was going to use the tree as well, but in the end I decided to leave that out of my design. My card was just going to be too crowded otherwise. I did stamp these images onto Hammermill white cardstock using some intense black ink from Simon Says Stamp, and then I'm going to color the images with my Copic markers. These images are fun to color, and I wanted to utilize the packaging as a guide for where to place my shading and also how to color these pieces. So I wanted to mimic the packaging a little bit. I did make a few adjustments, but for the most part I did follow it pretty closely. If you want to use the tree in your design, I ended up coloring it with some E40 markers. So I have E43, E44, and E47. That's how I colored the tree. And then for the door of the tree, I did use some purple markers. Those purple markers I did also incorporate into the haunted house. For the main part of the house, I did use some BV markers. And then for the trims of the windows, that's where I brought in those same purple colors that I used for the tree. If you want to know all the colors that I used for the coloring today, you can find all of those details down in the video description below, as well as on the blog. So the trim looks really cute in that purple color, and it offsets the blue-violet color really nicely. And then for the rest of the house, I used orange for the shingles. That was a color that was used on the stamp packaging, so I really liked that. I also brought in that orange for the stairs and the door trim. And then I'm going to also bring in some green. I thought green would look really nice for the door and the window shutters at the top. Now, of course, I wanted to color the kitty black, but I didn't want it to be totally black. And I used light gray markers for the base of the kitty and then some darker grays for the stripes. That gave it some shading and it looks really cute. A little bit of pink for its ears and cheeks. And then, of course, we have to have everything glowing. So I used some yellow Y11 and 18 markers to create the glow on the house and also on the jack-o'-lanterns. Now we're ready to bring in the coordinating die. So I'll go ahead and use my die snips to go ahead and trim the dies out, and then I'll use very, very low-tack tape from Simon Says Stamp to hold them in place. This way they won't shift as I run them through my die cut machine, and I'll know I get a really good cut. What's really fun about the Art Impressions dies is that they cut right up to the image, so you don't actually have too much of a white border around each of these pieces. Once I've die cut all of my images, I'm going to pop them out of the dies, and then I'll go ahead and set these aside while I work on making my background. So for the background, I'm going to be using our Simon Says Stamped Arched Forest embossing folder and coordinating die. This comes as a set. I'm going to create a scene for my little characters here. To start off, I'm going to die cut the die with some cardstock. I'm using Simon Says Stamp 120 pound white cardstock, and then we're going to emboss that die cut. I always like to emboss after die cutting, just so that way I don't actually smush any of the embossing details if I run this through my die cut machine. So I die cut first and then emboss the tree. Then I'm going to go ahead and emboss another panel with that same embossing folder, and this will be our background. So our tree die cut is going to get layered on top of the background to create a dimensional forest scene. I love this technique, it's so cool, and it really adds some depth to your card. So I'm going to ink blend the background first. I'm going to create a glow in the sky. I want to kind of bring my piece in place to make sure I'm happy with where the glow is, and if I need to add any more I could, but I was happy with how it turned out. And then I'm going to add the sky around the edges. So I'm going to use some heather and also iris inks from our Simon Says Stamp ink collection. I used lemonade for the glow in the middle of the forest. And I'm really being heavy with the amount of color that's around the outermost edges of this paper, just to get a really nice deep dark sky. Now the tree die cut, I'm also going to color in the same purple, because this is going to look like a shadowy forest behind our haunted house. So I don't want to color these brown, I want to keep them the same color as the sky, just so that they look like shadows. So I'm going to use that dark purple around the edges, and then very carefully add just a tiny bit of yellow to the innermost portion of those trees to create the glow. Before I glue this onto my card panel though, I am going to splatter it with some Distress Spray Stain. This is the Pewter color, and this just looks like beautiful silver stars in the background. So I generously applied some splatter to that background to create that starry finish. And then we're ready to ink blend the bottom of the trees. So this tree panel, I just used Pearfection and Celery to create a combination of greens here along the bottom to be the ground. So I have all my pieces colored and we're ready to go ahead and put these together. So on the back side of our tree die cut, I'm going to put little pieces of our Simon Says stamp foam strips. These are going to fit perfectly behind most of the tree sections, although the very topmost portions of the tree branches, I did not add any adhesive. This panel that I'm attaching this to is a little bit larger than the die cut. I had ended up trimming down my die cut to be 3 3/4 by 5, just so that way it's a little bit smaller than 82 cards. So I will trim up the background panel to be the same size. And for my embellishments that are going on top of this scene, I've got the house and also the kitty cat. Again, I didn't use the tree for this because I have all of these really cool trees in the background. I thought adding that tree image was just going to be too much. So, but all of these pieces I'm adhering down with some foam squares and they look so cute. Now for the top of the jack-o'-lantern that's going on top of the kitty's head, I did glue that down with a little bit of craft tacky glue because I didn't want to have to worry about popping that up. So my scene panel is going to get adhered to an A2 card, and because it's a little bit smaller, we're going to have a nice white border around the edges. And I'm just attaching this panel down onto my card using some Terrific tape. This adhesive works really well for a textured embossed panel like this. So I'm going to stamp a sentiment from the Spooky Crew stamp set, and I'm using black cardstock for my stamping. I'll prep the surface of that cardstock with a powder tool prior to bringing in my embossing ink. I'll go ahead and ink up my stamp and then press that down onto the cardstock. I will use some white embossing powder to sprinkle on top, and then I can heat set that with my heat tool. There are no coordinating dies for the sentiments, so you could either cut this out as just like a little circle or maybe a rectangle, but I decided to use my scissors to fussy cut around it to create kind of like a little bubble. And I really liked how that looked, so I'm using Simon Says Stamp Fine Detail scissors to help me do that. Then I can pop up my sentiment with another piece of foam tape, and that's going to go right above the kitty, off in the right corner. So the last finishing touch were to add some fun candy confections from Tim Holtz. You can't have Halloween without candy. So these embellishments are really fun. They're kind of like a clay texture. And what's really nice about them is that for the sticks, they're a little long for my card, but you can just trim those down with your scissors, and that way you have a custom size. You can tuck these around your scene. That's what I did here. And to glue them, I'm just using Simon Says Stamp Craft Tacky Glue. This is a great adhesive for embellishments. It's going to hold really well, and it also dries clear, so if I have any glue around the edges, you'll never notice it. So I have a bunch of those little pieces, the candy corns and also the fun little pinwheels and candy sticks. Those are all scattered around my card. And then that's gonna do it for this spooky cute card using Art Impressions Spooky Crew stamp set and coordinating dies. This set is a bundle, so the stamps and dies come together when you make your purchase. So if you want to find this stamp set, I have it down in the video description below and also over on our blog with all the other details about the other products that I used today. I hope you were inspired by this card. Halloween is not too far away, but this is such a cute card to give to one of your favorite friends. So thank you so much for tuning in today. I will be back very soon with more to share, but until then, happy Halloween and thanks for watching.
Hi there, I'm Heidi, Simon's mama and founder at simonsaysstamp.com. Thank you so much for watching our video. If you like what you just saw, be sure to press the thumbs up and subscribe to see more great content.